CFF presents 1% Better, a podcast about
CrossFit, nutrition, coaching, mindset, and community.
Join us as we embark in casual conversation to shed light on what life is like within these black and yellow walls. With episodes coming at you every Monday, you can follow along with Coach Whitney and Taryn as we talk shop about all things CFF. Episode 75. We're 3/4 of the way there.
Does that mean we're stopping at 100?
No, it's just a milestone. Today's topic is like a cool one, really. I have a feeling I'm gonna be on a soapbox. The evolution of the coach's role in our client's journey. That's a heavy topic.
Yeah. You can hear me pondering away.
Like start to finish. So like day one, well, and not finish because there really is no end point.
I keep questioning you saying life cycle, finish. It doesn't stop.
But there is a starting point. So like the coach's role from day one when we talk to them first and how that evolves as they evolve in their own little journey too. As they achieve their goals and get new goals or get further down the line or further into their experience, and like need to reorientate their goals, the coach's role becomes a little bit differentiated along the way, no matter where you are on that journey. And I know that a lot of our listeners will be able to relate to this. And just my hope is at the end of this episode that like you have a clear understanding of like where you are on that spectrum and like what you need from a coach in terms of like their role to help you continue moving forward.
I think it's safe to say that they might not even know what they need from a coach.
Also,
I feel like generally the coach knows what they need at that point in time.
Arguably, that's our job.
Yeah. In more than one way.
The people that like have goals, that's a good start. It's the people that like don't have goals are probably not even on that spectrum at all. Or they're like obviously at the very, very beginning.
Yes. Which hopefully most of our members have goals.
Because they've listened to our episodes on how to set goals. Episode 6 and 7, or 7 and 8, one of the two.
Are you just pulling numbers out of nowhere?
No, I know that it's in between 5 and 8.
I'm gonna challenge that.
I don't think it's 5, but I think it's 6 and 7, or it's 7 and 8.
All right, I'm gonna look into that.
2 most popular listened episodes.
No, I feel like the one about you is the most popular episode. Just saying. Anyway, tangent. And sorry, before we even start, did anybody tell you their favorite chocolate bars?
Nope.
Me neither. Somebody said they cried. Cried?
They cried?
They had some emotional connection to last week's episode.
Oh, from the whole entire episode,
yes,
not our chocolate bar talk.
Bars.
I was like, oh, that's sad. I better go buy them a chocolate bar.
7 and 8. You're number 6.
There, I was correct.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Side note.
Listen to episode 7 and 8 if you do not have goals.
And then find yourself a coach. Right?
And then on this episode, we'll tell you the coach's role.
All right. So tell us what the sort of journey of both the client and the coach looks like as they go through this process.
So obviously when the new client comes in and we have that first conversation with them in our no sweat intro, a lot of that conversation is just like finding out what their goals are, what are the things that they want to accomplish. And they're coming in because they have problems, right? My clothes don't fit. I don't feel great. I am out of shape. I have these health concerns, whatever that list of problems is, we have solutions. And the coach's role in that particular moment is to teach that new client all of the methods that they'll need and give them the tactics that are going to help solve those problems for them. So in the first primary interaction, that coach's role, I joined my words together there, that coach's role is as a teacher, right? A mentor. We're going to give you the information that you need that is going to help you solve your problems. As that client kind of progresses through that prescription or whatever they may have been given at their very first interaction with us, they'll achieve their goals, right? And as that process continues, it needs to be refined. And so that coach will work with them to help continue guide them through that process. It's like, okay, well, here's what we started out doing. Here's the changes that we're going to make, and I'm going to help you manage those changes as we keep going. So maybe it's like changing up their fitness program or changing up their nutrition regime or whatever it might be. The coach is guiding them through that process. They're still working closely with them at that time. Later on, as the client continues to achieve their goals, there might be a period of time where they might separate and continue working on their own and taking on their program by themselves, or they still may continue working with their coach. And the coach becomes more of like somebody used to reorientate them and keep them forward facing to always continue pushing forward. Those changes that need to be made become a lot harder to see, or sometimes they're just like blurred by a lot of noise, right? There's lots of stuff happening around. It's easy to get distracted and not really stay focused on what it is that you need to be doing, whether it's like your fitness stuff or your nutrition, especially your nutrition, I would say, the deeper that you get into this. So the coach is like more serving as like a reorientation or a person to refocus them, the client. And that process kind of repeats itself, right? Because as you get deeper into this, you want to learn new things, right? So an experienced client can then begin the cycle over again as they get taught a new process and then continue on through that cycle again, where the coach just plays the exact same roles that it goes. Like, okay, I'm going to continue to challenge you in this way. Here's the new skills that we're going to learn. Like maybe someone, for example, just learns the basic nutrition things along the way. And as they get deeper into it, they want to learn how to track macros. So now we've got to start over because I am introducing a brand new skill to you that you may not have any context or education on. Cool. We're going to learn that from scratch. And I'm going to help guide you through that process until you're ready to carry that out on your own, or we're at a level of comfortability where we can work together through this. Does that make sense?
Well, to me it does. I hope the listeners are nodding their heads as well. I
think just from like, when I look at this from like an outside the box perspective, this is probably the most like clear I've been on this in 11 years of operating, just like seeing the path that our clients can progress through and how our coaching roles parallel that, the value of having that person there with you differs as you go.
Why does somebody need to play these roles when they're trying to achieve something?
Well, at the base level of it, it's a layer of accountability, right? Knowledge is not the answer. Action is. Like anybody can go and find out this information on the internet. There's free workout plan. Like you just go to YouTube and type in a workout and you can find a workout on YouTube, right? But what is going to make you go down into your basement at 9 p.m. and go and knock out that workout? Like I just spoke to somebody yesterday who was telling me all about how that was like why they quit working out, was because they couldn't motivate themselves. No one was there expecting them to do these things, right? So having that coach there with you, telling you what changes you need to make, but then holding you accountable to make those changes gives you that actionable layer that will make you more successful, right? You can gain that knowledge anywhere. And heck, we're going to give you that knowledge, but that doesn't mean that you're going to go out there and implement it, right? We can tell you how to work out, but it's not going to make you work out. We can tell you how to eat, which we do every day in our free group there, but it's not going to make you eat better. Yeah. Would you agree?
Yep. Definitely. 100%.
And I know that of myself too. That's why I have coaches for everything that I do, fitness, nutrition, everything, because I'm the one that gives the knowledge out to others, yet my own actionable layer is not that great. I need somebody to push me in the right direction and clear that noise and that distraction for me to keep me moving forward and accountable to my own goals.
If you had to pick, so let's say you broke it down into 3 different kind of progressions through the spectrum, which area would be the most important if you had to pick? Like the teaching, the guiding, the reorientating
would be the most important.
Most valuable.
That's most valuable.
We have to pick one. Or like, I don't know whether you say most valuable, provides the most impact.
I would say at the beginning. Like, I think at the beginning, because obviously you're coming to me with this list of problems, you are acknowledging these problems, right? And so that means you're asking for help. And I'm sitting here giving you the tools that will help you clear those problems, or at least make those problems improved. And your level of action on that part, like we all know that when you first start out on this stuff, your progress is not linear. It's pretty exponential right off the start, and then it might level off. So in terms of like ROI, at the beginning, your action is going to skyrocket your progress. In the middle, so I can't pick just one. The context is so different. In the middle, that's where like you may be just going up and down just slightly, right? And so your action through the middle is what can continue your progress to be linear, instead of this up and down and not really seeing anything. So it may be harder through the middle. Maybe it's more important through the middle that's where you need to really chime in and keep it linear and make it linear, not keep it linear, but make it linear.
My answer was the middle.
Yeah, I think it's more impactful right off the start in terms of like ROI. But in the middle, that's the part that's going to solidify it for the long run.
Yes.
And I think that's the part that some people miss out on, right? It's like you may try it at the beginning, but maybe your effort isn't fully committed, or maybe you just don't try it at the beginning and you've now missed out on that opportunity. And no, missed out is the wrong word, because you can always come back and start again. We talked about this being a cycle, but like you've just delayed where that gap happens, you know?
Yeah, like I think you're taking away opportunity from yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you continue going, when you're really deep into this, the level of importance is probably even it's equivalent, if not more so, because I think it's very tempting to reach a level of like almost like you settle, right? Like you're in this routine, you work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you eat 80-20, like life is good, you know, it's very, very casual and set back, and like, you know what to expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you're still making progress though. This is more what I would consider like maintenance mode, settling mode. If you want to hit progress, you're going to really have to dig deep at that point, you know?
That just reminded me of a message I got actually back in September from a member, and it was a podcast idea, and he said, maintain or gain, deciding when or if you've met your goal, so happy where you are at, or if you want to continue pushing yourself.
Wow.
And I think about that because it's like, that's where a coach comes in handy to guide you with that, to help you decide if settling is appropriate for you, because arguably that can be appropriate for somebody. And then my response to him was, or do you find a new goal and put effort towards that to help them? He's like, yeah, I get what you're saying.
But I think that's also like that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
B, I think just our culture here is always forward pushing, right? Like, I don't want to say that settling is a bad thing, but I just don't think that people really reach their full potential, right? You have so much room to grow. And that's always been my message about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very upfront and forward facing on that message. So I think that like, if you come to that point where it's like gain or maintenance mode, like push yourself to continue, keep going, you know? What else can you achieve?
I think that depends on what the goal is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if your goal is like weight loss and your body fat is already at like 10%, like, okay, cool, we can chill it.
Yeah. I also had a conversation with one of my remote clients, and she said she was actually working with one of our nutrition coaches, and she gave up an opportunity to continue on with her nutrition. She was happy with where she was at, the changes and all of that stuff, but she wanted to take that focus and put it elsewhere and work towards other goals that she had, which I thought was really great, that she had that knowledge and understanding of choosing to focus on this nutrition was going to require a lot from her.
Yeah.
But she knew she wanted to put her energy into some other stuff that she could benefit from in that moment. She was happy with where her nutrition was at, but she knew she could be a better person, a better mom, a better educator if she chose to focus on other things. And I thought that was kind of cool, the way she continues to shift her focus. Thought that was neat.
And the coach conversation in that respect can be like, hey, cool, like, I think that's great. I'm not the person to help you do those things or whatever, but like, you know what I mean? So acting as that filter in that regard, that is awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. Very, very interesting. Can you talk? Yeah, no, I am. It's a deep cycle. Can you talk more about, could somebody come into the spectrum not at the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. I still think there's an element of teaching that they need when they first start.
Okay, so then my question would be how, like, if you were working,
the gap between like how they progress from like being that new client to the next stage would just look smaller, and it might happen faster than somebody who has like no gym experience or no food experience, right? Where that gap is going to be a lot bigger.
Okay, let's go this scenario. Current member working towards a goal, not working with a coach. How do they decide when they need a coach?
When their progress is not happening, stalled, or they just don't know how to get there.
And like, yeah, and that would be the situation where the teaching portion would probably be less.
Or maybe they do know how to get there, they may not have the resources to do it.
So when would they jump in? Well, I guess if they don't have my
question
is, would they jump into the guiding process? But I guess if they don't have the resources to get it, you'd have to teach them something.
A specific scenario I'm thinking of is somebody who's been a long-term member, goes through an injury, wants to rehab that injury, knows that they need to be working with a coach in a personal training environment, but doesn't know what they need to be doing to rehab that injury to get them back to where they're going. Okay, cool. Like, I'm going to teach you all that stuff. I'm going to help hold you accountable to show up and do this work. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be boring, but we're going to do it. And you're going to be 10 times better when you return to where you were. As an example, or somebody like has a running goal and they know they want to run this 10K, but they don't know how to get there. They know they need to run. They just don't know what they need to be doing. They also should be doing some strength work. So I'm going to teach you about that. And I'm going to teach you about what your running needs to look like to make that better and get you to your goal a little bit faster.
So it's safe to say you probably never enter midway.
Yeah, I think there's always an element of teaching. I just think that gap between the transition just becomes smaller. Like you might expedite your progress through a little bit quicker. Somebody who may come into this program with macro experience, but I still need to start them on the foundational things, because it doesn't matter if you're eating McDonald's and whatever to hit your 1,000 calories. But if I can get you eating better foods and whole foods and understand that whole process, and you do that really quickly because you understand that process, you're just going to get to the second level a little bit quicker. There's no specific waypoint, or check mark, I would say. I think it's all a client comfort level and like to a certain degree achieving their goal, whatever that goal may be, but I don't want to hold that over them because sometimes it's out of their control. I think their experience and their mastery of that experience is kind of like what dictates their transition through that. I like that word, mastery.
Okay, well, I'm going to challenge you on that. Do I need to be a master of whatever I am at to move forward, though? No. So, like, what am I mastering?
Your consistent practice of it.
Well, mastering consistency tells me I need to be perfect before I can move. Well, I guess depends what you deem as, like, are you following
You're
like
putting
an
the reps
80-20 rule,
is
right?
what I'm saying. Because if you put the reps and the effort in, most likely you're going to end up a lot closer to your goal than if you don't. I mean, this is contextually based. That could change based on what the goal is.
Can you talk more about the importance of spending time in that like reorientation phase?
This one's hard because I think this type of experienced athlete or person or individual or whatever is sometimes set in their own ways. And arguably somebody new coming into the program is also set in their ways too. It can be too. But I think like and the most obvious thing that comes to mind is somebody's like, well, when I did this, when I lost all this weight, this is what I did. So I know I have to do that again. But that may not be the answer 4 years later. Now you're menopausal and back then you weren't, for example. Sometimes these conversations are some of the most headstrong ones you have to have. They're like, no, it's okay. This is the actual route that we need to go. We need to just clear all this noise that's like happening. It could be also overwhelm. Just like the loss of progress almost too. I guess that's almost the same conversation on the last one. It's like, well, when I lost all this weight, this is what I did. So I need to be doing that. I think it's important in that regard. And the thing that's great about people that have been in the process this long and have reached that level where they have this relationship with the coach that the coach is used to reorientate them and keep them forward moving is that they have that trust built into that coach or that system. So they know that they can bring up these problems and whatever the decision is or whatever the path forward that's laid out for them, they'll most likely go down that path and then they re-enter that cycle and through it again.
We were talking before we started recording that I brought up that I think that role gets played throughout the whole process. And like I've had clients where they've set these goals and we're working towards them, but then all of a sudden we aren't like, the reorientation is happening because those goals are now changing and like we're not making it to that goal because that goal is no longer important. Something else is important. So that filtering actually happens like way before even the goal is met. Like it happens more along the guiding phase.
Yeah, and I think that's why like I don't want to hold them like actually achieving the goal as the standard that moves them from one to another. I think it's just the process of like being in that goal chasing process. And like we talked, the filtering part of it can happen at the beginning too, that like when someone comes in here and they've tried 25,000 different programs and all they know is what they know, to be able to filter through that and be like, no, this is what's important about everything that you know.
As a client with coaches like you yourself, what area is most valuable for you?
As a client with coaches like myself.
Like you yourself as a client.
Oh, with my coaches.
Yes, sorry.
The end one. Or the last one, the reorientation.
Interesting. I would have thought you said the guiding in terms of like accountability.
Well, there's accountability layer to it all, but like the reorientation one is like, I always know that I have someone in my back pocket that'd be like, hey, like I'm lost. I have these goals and I'm just like, I'm not doing it. Can you put me back on the path I need to be on? What do I need to be doing? I feel a little lost. Like that's generally the conversations that I'm having. So like sometimes I get distracted from like my original goal or like whatever my goal is at that time. And that coach just kind of like clears all the distractions for me and like keeps me pushing forward Like, are those things actually going to help me achieve my goal? No. And then we have this kind of conversation that revolves around that. So for me, and where I am in my athlete journey, or just like personal journey on all regards, I think that's the layer that is more impactful for me. I don't do well on the first one, the teacher role, or like working with the teacher. I'm more of a robot, right? So I don't, like, whatever you tell me to do, I'm just going to do. I don't care to know the why behind it until like maybe later.
Do you ever put yourself into that position though, to be like,
to like work with robots and like what that conversation looks like?
No, to like be taught something new to help you achieve your goals.
As from a coach to a client, understanding the why is very beneficial, because it helps reinforce why you're doing those things, so that, you know, if you understand it, you're more likely to be on board with it. Like, your buy-in is harder. For me personally, I'm already coming to that coach with the buy-in. Like, I've paid for your service. To me, that's my buy-in. So whatever you're about to tell me, I trust you with that information. And I think that's an experience thing. You know, I've worked with coaches for many, many, many years. So I know that by paying this person, I'm already putting my trust in them for the information that they're going to give me. You know, from somebody who's coming into the gym for the first time, they may not have that level of experience, you know?
So you are the client that bypasses the teaching one is what, so yes, there are people who don't go through the teaching.
Well, I don't want to say I don't go through it. I think I'm the one with the small gap. I'll like push myself through it really fast so that I don't have to spend a lot of time there.
So you prefer to come in,
yeah,
and avoid that space.
But arguably, that's also why I'm not successful in a lot of the things.
That's why I asked,
like,
do you ever put yourself in a position to be taught?
That's why
to help improve.
I get caught in these vicious cycles.
So I feel like you start at the end and work your way backwards and never really make it to the teaching part.
Is that not
That's
relatable to everything else
from this conversation? Guys, don't do it that way. Start at the beginning. Be patient.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Well, I can only say that so many times. But honestly, right? Because you said like the most valuable part to you is that filter part, but it sounds like you always go to that part to get you started again. Right? Yeah.
With coaches I have experience with.
Yes.
Right. Like, but if I'm starting with a new coach that I've never worked with before, then obviously it starts at the beginning. But like I said, that gap is
very
just
small window.
Yeah. That gap is just small.
Like the window is you paying somebody and then that window closes. Again, do as she says, not as she does.
Let me make all the mistakes so that you don't have to.
Start at the beginning. Be patient. Any other advice in terms of like why having a coach is important or the roles a coach plays? Or soapbox words for the spectrum?
I think that if you sit and just sort through what kinds of problems are you facing, like honestly, make a list of all the things that you feel like you're up against, right? How many of those things are you trying to take on your own? How long have you been trying to take those things on by yourself? And like, how many times have you gone back to the beginning to start over again, to butt up against them, to start over again, to, you know what I mean? Like that cycle, and how much time has elapsed over that cycle? You know, people can spend 4 or 5 years making the same mistakes over and over and over again and not making any progress, when you could pay somebody and hire them to show you the way, to teach you the things that you need to know and guide you through that way so that you don't make those mistakes anymore. And look at how much time and effort you could save yourself if you had that coach there beside you to guide you along that way, you know? And then arguably that last part of the cycle, that reorientation role of the coach, like that is so valuable to have that person in your corner in that role, because you always have that confident, how do you say that, confidant there, that trusted person who like knows this journey that you've been on and can help pull you back when you start to step off the wrong way. You know, it's the time thing it's the time and effort thing for me. That like, how much time are you going to spend spinning your tires in the mud before you get to the point where you're like, I just can't do this anymore? Or maybe you don't even get to that point because you don't even realize that you're doing it. That like you're fighting the same demons for 4 or 5 years and like you just can't get past that. And that's what sets us apart, is like our ability to coach you through that. Like we have those tools, we have those tactics that can help you go from that beginning stage to get to that later experience stage all the way. I'm very biased, obviously. Like I said, I have a coach for everything. And I've seen that value over the years, time and time again. So my listener question, or like my listener reflection, I'm going to call it today, is like, where are you on that spectrum? Are you even on that spectrum? List out your problems. What are you fighting? How long have you been fighting those things for? Where is the coach going to help you make the most progress? Or like, where can the coach? Guaranteed the coach can help you through those things. Are you humble enough to ask for help? Like, why are you fighting that cycle over and over again? Like, why are you so headstrong about asking for help? What is your reluctance? And then like, arguably, if you're in the later stage of that spectrum, if you're in where that coach serves as a reorientation, like, where are you right now? Are you still on path? Like, can you see clearly what you need to be doing next? Like, do you know what you need to do? Do you know how to do it? Like, what is the next thing? And if you don't know what that is, that's where the coach is there for you to continue to show you what that next thing is. Share those answers with me. This stuff gets me going. You haven't said anything for like...
You're on your soapbox. I'm just letting you have at her. Just easier that way.
We're just super passionate about helping people. And I think that's very evident in almost every episode that we record, or how we conduct ourselves day to day. You know, help is what we want to do, and coaching is the best way to do it. Whew. That was a good one. That felt good to talk it out.
Do you need help down from your box?
It's pretty high today. It might be a 30-inch box today. All right. Listen, I'm going to give you a tip today. If you are fighting those battles time and time again, we run a free Facebook group called Fitness, Health, Nutrition, Mindset in Yorkton. Just search for us, add yourself in, and there's tons and tons of free resources in there that can start to push you forward on the right path. As always, follow our Facebook socials, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. You can send us a message to give us your listener reflections. We would love to hear it this week. Thanks for listening. Episode 75.